So, oh, Lubna. Hey, Lubna.
Hi, Mr. John. Good morning. How are you doing?
How are you? Happy New Year. We haven't seen you.
Yes, Happy New Year for you too. Yes, last Monday I had some guests, and Wednesday I forgot. And today I'm here.
Well, and I know probably many of you, your kids are probably home today from school, right?
So my kids, they didn't go to school yet,
Yeah.
so that's why. Yeah. So how are you doing with this cold weather?
Oh, it's cold, cold, cold.
Yeah, very
I
cold.
know I
Yeah.
would. I know. But I think the good news is tomorrow it's going to start warming up a little bit, and then each
Yes, I
day a little
see.
better, a little better. Yeah. So next week will be better.
Yes.
So,
Mm, yeah.
all
It's my
right. Well,
first
hey guys.
time.
Yeah.
I said it's my first time to see the coldest weather since I have been here in uh,
Yeah, it's we had some cold weather back in 2022, but that was around Christmas time. So yeah, this has been
yes,
we haven't had really cold weather for a while. So,
yes.
well, all right. Well, guys, let's go ahead and get started. So, it is Wednesday, January 22nd, and yes, it is a very, very cold day. So, I hope you guys are warm. Thank you so much for joining us. So, yeah, it says, yeah, I think so. Gotta, I agree. Now, my wife, a couple of weeks ago, my wife sent me this little video, and I thought it was really interesting. It was about the old technology that we don't hear anymore. So I thought this will be an interesting little activity to start class. So these sounds that we're going to hear are sounds that were very common if you were born in the 1970s, the 1980s, or perhaps even the 1990s. So the idea is in just a moment, I'm going to play some sounds for you, and I want to see if you can identify the different technologies from the sounds. Now, I realize that here in the class we've got different ages. Some of us were pretty young. Some of us maybe like me, a little older, right? So, but the idea is, I thought this was kind of interesting. So, in just a moment, I'm going to play six sounds. Okay, six sounds, and then we're going to see if you can identify what they are or what they were, right? Because the idea is these are sounds that we probably don't hear anymore. So again, I'm going to play six of them, and then we're going to see if you can guess what the sounds are. Okay? All right. So here is sound number one.
You've got mail.
Okay, so that was sound number one. All right, let's listen to sound number two. Okay, so that was sound number two. Here is sound number three. Oh, hold on. My videos aren't working here. I thought I had them in order. That was sound number three. It's very fast. Let me play it again. Okay, so that's number three. All right, here's number four. Okay, here's number five. Okay, so that's number five. And then here is number six. This is the last one. Okay, so those were the 6 sounds. Now, it looks like Gada recognizes some of them, so that's interesting. But let's see if you guys can identify them. So for sound number one, if you guessed the dial-up internet, then you were correct. So sound number one was specifically from the company AOL. Have you guys heard of AOL before? Anybody here in the class here of AOL?
Yes.
Yeah? Well, you are the first one
Yeah.
because nobody in my class yesterday recognized them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so Deborah, congratulations. You're old. There you go. Yeah, so here in the United States, especially, if you wanted to join the internet back in the 1990s, you needed AOL, America Online. So this was a very common way. And yes, it was very slow. And I think you identified it. You had to use the telephone. You had to dial up the internet. So that was true. All right, so very good. Okay, now let me play sound number 2 again because some people have joined us. So again, sound number 2. Okay, so what do you think? Gada says she recognizes it. What do you think, Gada?
Yes, landline, ring phone.
Well, it's actually a very specific kind of telephone. It
Yes,
is,
black one.
yeah, yes,
Yes.
this old, what we called an old rotary phone, when you would have to use your
Yes.
finger to move it like this, right? Did anybody have this phone? You can think about it. My grandfather did, so that tells you. Okay, all right. Sound number 3. Let's listen to sound number 3 again. All right. Does anyone recognize sound number 3?
It's like you got email or message or something like that.
No.
The door ring.
Good guess. No.
It's a public telephone.
Good guess. No. This one might be too old for you, Deborah, too. All right, well, I'll give you a hint. It is an old cash register. You know when you go to Kroger and you pay money, right?
Yes,
Remember that?
yes.
Yeah. So this was an old cash register. Now, the picture you see here is not so old, but some of the old cash registers would, make a sound, ding, when they would open the drawer. So really old cash registers. Okay, now sound number 4. Let's listen again to sound number 4.
Hand
All right.
typing.
Typer machine.
Yeah, okay. So you've got the right idea. So the name of it is a typewriter. A typewriter. Yeah. So again, this one is a very old example here, but typewriters, yeah, some places still have typewriters. Okay, now sound number 5. Gada said it was a game, and you are correct. But let's see if anyone recognizes. I'm going to play it one more time. All right, does anyone recognize the game?
Maybe Super Mario.
Well, let's put it this way. You're kind of getting close in time, Lubna, but no, it's actually older than Super Mario. Anyone else have a guess? All right, well, I'm going to show you because a few years ago, Google used it as their, the name Google when they do the doodle at the top of the screen. They actually created one. It was the Pac-Man doodle. Pac-Man was the name of the game. So when we're finished here, I'm going to share this with you if you'd like to play. You can play it right here in the browser. But let me show you how it works. So you can move it around. So this was a very popular game when I was a kid. So I wanted to share that with you because it was a very popular video game when I was a kid. Now that tells you how old I am. Did anybody recognize that game? Anybody? No, nobody had recognized it. Well, anyway, that's the game, Pac-Man. All right, so that tells you how old I am. Okay, that tells you how old. All right, now what about the last sound? Let's listen one more time. All right, does anybody recognize it?
Yeah,
That's
this
old
is a
printer.
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 Yeah, it's an
Inkjet
old.
off, I think.
Yeah, so it's what we called a dot matrix printer. So
Dot
it had
matrix.
a it had a little carrier that would go back and forth. And it was kind of like a typewriter, right? You know, it would go back and forth and print the words out like this. So so these were sounds of technology that we don't really use anymore. We don't really have these examples here. In fact, I'm interested for number 2. Does anybody here in the class actually have a home telephone? Does anyone actually have a home telephone?
No, I don't.
I didn't think so. I don't know that anybody does. Yeah, except me. So
Yeah,
my wife,
nowadays, people usually use only the cell phones, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I was
Maybe
so,
guys.
and, and Flavia, I guess I could say I was kind of surprised by that about 5 or 6 years ago when we would, when we first moved online and we had to, we were contacting students, and I noticed that most of my students had cell phones, and we were, sending them text messages or whatever to get in touch with them. And I realized, oh my goodness, when I was looking through all of the phone numbers, they were all those cell phone number prefixes. There were no numbers that were from the landlines here in Kentucky. So I was really surprised by that. So I think in a way that has, this is a technology really nobody uses anymore. Got it?
yes, I have one in my original country, but it's mandatory in my country to have one landline phone to connect it with the line of internet and something like that. But
Right.
used it. I used to use it to phone my to call my mom and my relatives in Egypt.
Sure. Sure. Well, and Gada, you make a good point too. For a long time, if you wanted to, like if you had an emergency, like a 911 emergency, you needed a landline phone, because if you had a cell phone, they wouldn't know where you're calling from. So this has been a discussion about, people using landline phones. They actually have an address.
Mhm.
So that's a good point. That's certainly been a big part of the discussion. But the truth is, I think, we have a landline phone. My wife uses it still for work. My mom has a landline phone still, but my dad doesn't. They don't have one. So I thought, wait a minute, that's crazy. So, well, anyway, we're going to talk a little bit more about these old technologies, and then we're going to get started with a topic, a discussion. I think that'll be very helpful in connection to that. That'll be our expression for the day, and then today we're going to start with the idea of used to. Okay, so that's going to be a new grammar topic we're going to talk about here this morning. So think about those technologies we talked about, right? So, Gada, you mentioned, for example, you had a rotary phone or a telephone, landline. So I'm curious here, what about you guys? What about the rest of the class? Did you have any of these technologies? I'm going to go back and show you the answers. Did any of you have any of these technologies before? So again, did anybody use dial-up internet, or did anybody have a typewriter, for example, or a dot matrix printer? Did anyone have these technologies?
Yes.
Which
In the
ones, Deborah?
the dial-up internet
Okay.
when starting. I did datilography, and I did a machining. I forgot the name.
Typewriter. Okay.
Typewriter,
Typewriter.
and
Okay.
I use all my fingers for on my computer
Yes.
because I
Let me
use
tell you.
all my
Well,
fingers.
let me tell you, Deborah. So this is how old I am. We actually had a typewriter class in
Yes,
school.
yeah,
Well, that was the best class.
yeah,
Type. Well,
yeah,
guess what? My wife did not. So my wife was doing
yeah,
this. So when we were in school, she would say, John, could you help type my papers? Because you could
yeah.
type. And I
Me
said,
too.
you need to pay me money. I should take money for this.
Yeah,
So
we have
it was a great, yeah.
a
See,
good.
so see,
Yeah,
good idea,
yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah. And it's not here, but we use fax. Fax. Remember the fax?
Yeah, yeah. Fax machines. So here's another funny moment, Deborah. So my wife has to communicate with her insurance company, just with some claims, and they still require faxes.
Oh,
You can't email the information. It must be a fax.
oh my.
Now, we used to have a fax machine. My wife used to use it for work, but that was like 10 years ago. So now she had to like go somewhere to fax information. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Who uses fax machines anymore? Seriously. So, all right. Now I'm going to ask Deanna. Do you even recognize any of these technologies? Have you ever seen any of these before?
Yeah, my grandparents had a telephone.
Okay,
Exactly the same. It looks,
like this one. Okay,
yeah. Um, that's all.
that's it. Oh no, I
Yeah,
really
I
feel
think
old.
internet. We had a different one, but my grandparents like they have something that sounds the same when you put
Yeah,
your phone near this internet.
yeah, yeah. So I like how Deanna is saying her grandparents. So something tells me that maybe I'm the same age as your grandparents. Oh no.
My
Thanks,
grandpa is
Deanna.
72.
Okay, well I'm not that old. Okay. Okay. I feel better now. Okay. All right. Now, yesterday, one of my young students said, Mr. John, I've seen these before in the movies. And I thought, oh no, like an old historical movie, like from the 1980s. And I thought, oh my goodness. Gada, what do you think about that?
Yes, I said that you're asking the youngest member of our friends here. Diana is the youngest one here.
I think so. I think so.
I feel
She,
like I'm very old now.
I know that's the problem when you start talking technology with people and they say, "What's
Yeah,
that?"
yeah,
Yeah. All
yeah.
right. Now I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask this question of everybody, but I want to especially ask Deanna this question. Okay. All right. So Deanna, I'm going to show you a picture. Let's see if you recognize this picture. Do you know? Do you know what these are? Do you recognize these, Deanna?
It's for music.
Oh no,
No, for films.
no.
You put
There
it
you go.
somewhere. I remember that we had these things in my grandparents' house, but
Oh,
they
it's just
were
nice.
old and they didn't use it. We just have a collection of these things.
Okay, okay. All right. Now I feel really, really old. Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, Deanna. I figured this was probably not so familiar to you. Deborah, do you remember these?
Yes, unfortunately, I remember all this.
Yeah, so I think yeah, some of us are probably closer in age than others. But yes, these are called VHS, right? So these were VHS tapes. So in the old days, before Netflix and streaming, right, we had to buy movies on cassette or rent from a store. And of course, after VHS, we had DVD. So you might recognize DVDs. All right, to recognize DVDs, you probably recognize those. Yeah. So yeah, so that makes us feel really old, doesn't it? There we go. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for making me feel old. I appreciate that. So, anyway, it's always fun, though. As Gada mentioned, it's always interesting to talk to people to see if they remember specific technologies. And there you go. All right. Hey, everybody. Great chance for us to learn a new expression here this morning. So, first off, everyone, let's turn on the microphones. Let's turn on the microphones and let's say this new expression together. Okay, so everybody turn on the microphones. Come on, turn them on, turn them on. All right, guys, repeat after me. The good old days.
The good old
The
days.
good old
Good
days.
old days.
All right, now you can turn off your mics there for a moment. So, Mr. John, what do we mean by the good old days? Well, the good old days are what we think of as a nostalgic feeling, right? A feeling about the past, that things were maybe better in the past. And thinking about maybe it was a simple time, less stress, and more joy. Now, of course, when we talk about the good old days, some people talk about them like for their personal life. So, in just a moment, you can think about your idea of the good old days for yourself. Like, when were the good old days for you? Maybe when you were a teenager, right? Or maybe when you were a child. These might be what you think of as the good old days. But some people also think about them as like some time in the past, thinking about life and thinking about, oh, life was better in the 1960s or the 1980s or the 2000s. This idea that life was better in some time in the past. So we could use it in a personal way. So like here, you notice this person says memories, right? Thinking about the memories we have. And then other people might think, oh, those were the days. Those were the good old days back in the past, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. Now, I think that's a very common thing, right? People often think about the past. They think about their lives in the past and that they think it's maybe a better time. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to try a little short dialogue. There's actually just one. I just have one example. And you and your partner are going to practice the dialogue. And then there's a question at the end of the dialogue for you to discuss. And of course, it's going to be asking about the good old days, right? The idea. But the topic in the conversation that you're going to see, so if you'll notice it says family reunion. These are oftentimes when people think about the past, right? When they get together with family, especially family that maybe they've not seen for a long time. So this is a common thing we do in the United States, is we often have family reunions, get together with family members and talk about the good old days, right? The past. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And the idea is we're going to go into the breakout room. Now, we're not going to take a long time. It's just one short dialogue and then a question. So you and your partner can practice the dialogue. If you want to practice it, 2 times, that's fine. But then try to answer the question that you see at the end of the dialogue. So that's the idea. The idea is that you can practice the dialogue and then answer that question. And we won't take very long to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and get our breakout rooms ready. And then we will go into the breakout room. I will share the link in the chat. So if you guys remember where the chat is. Okay. All right. So I think, okay. Looks like we'll have one group of 3 and the rest will be groups of 2. So the group of 3, if you want, you can practice it 2 times if you like. So we're going to go into the breakout room. I will come and join you. I'll share the link to the activity. And then we'll take about maybe 5 minutes. It shouldn't take very long. We'll come back and then we'll discuss the situation and the question. So, all right, guys, get ready. Here we go. All right, I think everyone has returned. Okay, before we talk about the question, I want to talk about family reunions. Now, as I mentioned before, that here in the United States, people often have family reunions, maybe once a year or once every 3 or 4 years to get together with family members, aunts and uncles and cousins and maybe people who live in different places, they'll come to one place. Of course, some people live close to all their family, and maybe they get together all the time. So, but let me start with that first discussion. Are family reunions common in your countries? Do you have these big, get-togethers of people? Is that something that is very common, or is it something you do all the time? Something that you basically do every day? So I'm curious, who would like to share with us? Flavia?
Yeah, in my home country, it's very common. You have some family reunions, so you don't need to have a special day for that, a
Okay.
special holiday. You can just think about it and get together for maybe for a barbecue in the summertime. So it's really fun.
Now,
I have a question, teacher.
sure, Flavia.
So I will think about that. So you told us before that it's very common family reunion in the United States at least once a year. So is Thanksgiving the most important time to get together
Now
to
that's a
family
yeah,
reunion?
that's a great question. I think different families do things in different ways. But let me give you an example. Many people think of Thanksgiving as a chance to get together with maybe their close family. Now, of course, that might include, grandparents, right, and aunts and uncles. But when we often think of family reunions, we often think of everybody from like that side of the family. So, for example, my father, they're from central Kentucky. They live in a different location. And so everybody who might be related, second cousins, you know, great grandparents, or people related. So in many ways, we think of the family reunion as more of like the extended family, like big get-togethers. So I think many people think of Thanksgiving as more like the close family or the immediate family. And then maybe a family reunion might be a special day in the summer. People can travel, especially if they live far away, and maybe get together. Again, it depends on maybe where you're from or where you live. So that's why I said it's common, because I think in many ways, some of you may come from countries where all of your family live very close. Here in the United States, that may be true, but it's also true that many people have moved away. So in this case, Flavia, I think Thanksgiving might be more of just like a close family, like or Christmas. Christmas might be also that time. But I think you mentioned the summer. Like the summertime is a great time for people to have these really extended family reunions, like these really big ones, to get together. So Flavia, is that something that happens in your country, or do you feel like it's mostly the closer family that get together?
Well, if you are talking about Christmas time, for example,
Okay.
I think is most common. You get together like the extended family can join. For example, you
Okay.
just choose a place and then
Okay.
everyone from the family. It depends on where some people live, right? So, because, for example, in my
Sure.
family,
Sure.
I have, for example, my mother-in-law. She loves. She lives in a countryside, so it's hard
Okay.
sometimes for her to come to our big city, biggest
Right.
city, to
Right.
get together.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it depends on the family. Yeah, maybe Deborah can explain better.
So yeah, maybe a Brazilian thing. Yeah, Deborah?
Yes. Oh, so I think depends the distance people live in,
Right.
and not the kind of relatives first, or no, depends the distance.
Okay.
I think it's easier for be together, and if people have a good relationship, okay. But we have a way, is common in my country. We have some friends like a family. So
Okay.
we are together every weekend, for example,
Sure.
or
Sure.
always.
Yeah. Now, Deborah, I think here in the United States, I'll give you a good example. Like my wife's family, They're from Eastern Kentucky, and pretty much everybody from both the mother and the father side live in the same community. They live in the same town. So for them, they would see their family, like you said, family, friends, almost you would see them on the street, you would see them in their neighborhoods. So for them, when they did family reunions, they would do family reunions with the the people from the family, the extended family who maybe moved because they had to find work or they had to find jobs. So, for example, it was very common for people in the eastern part of Kentucky. So, if you look at my map, that's eastern Kentucky here. So, they would move to Ohio. They moved to Ohio many years ago. So, usually once a year, they would go to Ohio and get together, with that side of the family.
Ah,
So,
legal.
yeah, so in some ways, my wife's family is much more, I think, similar to some of your
Mm-hmm.
family situations, where maybe you lived close to many of your family members. Now, me, on the other hand, I did not live near my family. My family was very, many different places. So we only had family reunions every 3 years, 4 years. We didn't see our family that much. So I think this is it's interesting to learn about different cultures, right? Lubna, is this how would you describe your experience?
For me, as you said, everyone is in different country and different place. So it's we are reunion in the summer, and if there is any occasion, for example, a wedding or something, so we invite everyone to this occasion. So we are meeting if there is some big occasion, yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
wedding, and so we meet to once a year or
Okay,
in 2 years. So
okay,
it's not
okay.
easy like before. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I think especially as time passes, it gets harder. Yeah. Gata?
Yes, in my country, we used to get together every month, and also on some certain occasions like parties or funerals or something
Okay,
like that. But at least 5 or 6 times annually, we have to meet together. Um, as I can say that we're close family.
I see.
But fortunately, that we are all on the same or in the same city. But
Okay,
of course, it will be very difficult to meet if someone of them uh, works in different city.
sure.
But but I think the main reason of getting together so close because of the grandparent. If the grandparents passed away,
Right, right.
become more difficult.
That's a very good point. I think here in the United States, we still think of grandparents as the sort of the center of the family. So I do agree with you, especially Flavia mentioned Thanksgiving. I think Thanksgiving, Christmas, those were still much more around the grandparents or that kind of center of the family. So that's a very good point. I do think that when the grandparents pass away, it changes things. Yes, I think that's definitely true. So, okay, well, this is again, this is really interesting to hear about the different cultures and different situations here. Okay, let's talk about the question very quickly. So, all right, guys, what about you? Do we like to talk about the good old days? Do you like to look at old pictures? Do you like to think about those things, or do we still like to think about maybe the future? So, Yafet, I'm going to start with you. What about you, Yafet? Do you like to think about the good old days? Do you like to look at old pictures and get together with old friends, or do you only like to think about the future?
Oh, it's a good question. So I think, uh, of course, I like to talk about all days, about the good old days. Sometimes when I am on the phone with a friend or maybe a family member, but by myself, usually I don't really look at old picture.
Okay.
Yeah, if I talk with a friend or maybe a family member, we can talk about the good old days, and that's kind of give some joy.
So Yafet, what are the good old days for you? Are they when you were a child? Are they when you were in university or something? Or does it matter? Is it not important?
Also, the good old days for me, I think that would be every moment in my life when
Really? Wow.
maybe I I did and I had share with a friend or maybe with a family member a good moment. So all the good moment that I
Interesting.
had share with a friend with a family member for me is a good old days, and it's kind of
That's good. That's a very positive way of thinking about it. I think that's great. Yeah, I like that. Thanks, Yafet. That sounds very positive. Yeah. Thinking about any good moment you might have. That's great. I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's very good. Okay. All right. Anyone else have a thought about this? Anybody else like to think about old days, or do we only like to think about the future? Gada, what about you?
Yes, I think that looking at the old pictures make me feel like the same feeling of that moment exactly. So I need every time to look at my old picture when I was a child or when I was at the kindergarten or
Sure.
school or
Sure.
occasions with my family and my friends and every moment.
Well, it's interesting that school seems to be a big part of it. Yeah, because you meet a lot of people in school. That seems to be a very natural way to meet people. So maybe, yeah, maybe school is a good example of that.
Yes, we can communicate this with that moment at what occasion we were on um, at Eid Fitr, at occasion of my tradition as a Muslim. It's I have many and many uh, occasions to celebrate. So it's very nice to remember that moment exactly.
Yeah, and especially thinking about family opportunities too. So hopefully, yeah, if you've got those family pictures. Right.
Yes.
Now, of course, what's interesting is now, of course, everybody puts pictures on their phones, right? But guys, do you remember the old days when you would have to put photos inside of a book, right? A photo album, and you would sit down and look through the pictures. Does anyone remember that? Right? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Teacher, is it called hard copies of pictures? For example, when you in that time, I just remember when I was a child, a
Okay.
teenager, my mother used to print the photos. It's called
Right.
hard copies of
Hard
pictures,
copies. Well, I mean, that sounds that's that's kind of a modern way to describe,
right?
yeah,
Okay,
what we used to just call pictures. So we just used to call them pictures. So now,
old
yeah, do you have,
pictures or
yes,
something.
yeah, photos, we would just call them photos, right? So that's a very interesting way, because now we need a better way to describe it. Because for
Yeah,
young people, yeah, I mean, I'm curious, does how many people print pictures? Does anybody actually print pictures from their
I don't do
phones?
this anymore.
Not
No.
I did.
anymore.
I did. I did.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So Lubna, maybe. Okay. Yeah. I get a feeling that maybe a lot of young people don't print their pictures, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's becoming more popular to do that. But you're right. So I don't know if I'd call them hard copies, but I guess you call them that now. We need a new word for it, right, Flavia? So maybe we do. Yafet?
oh, I just wanted to respond in your question about
Yeah.
because I'm young. You were asking if young people do
Okay. You're young. Okay.
for yeah, I'm young, so I think it's it's for me to respond. I don't think so. I don't think young people and nowadays do print do
Yeah.
I don't think so. We just maybe have the photos and our phone and
Yeah.
maybe in the cloud. But print is a little bit weird. It's a little bit thing of God.
Well, I definitely think it's, yeah, we don't think about it as much. Now, Deanna, do you print any of your pictures, or what do you do?
Um, it was my wish for a Christmas present, and I got a present, a camera that prints pictures
Oh,
straight
yeah.
after you took a picture, and I had a wall
Okay.
with lights, and I put these pictures of my cats on the wall.
Well, so what you're referring to, or what we used to call Instamatic cameras. So let me show you an example here. So the old Kodak Instamatics, I think these were the old ones. Let me see if I can find a picture here. Yeah. Yeah, so something like a vintage Polaroid, or like something like this, where we would print the photo like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the printer at the bottom. Oops, sorry, hold on. Something like this. Yeah. So Deanna, in the old days, right? We old people, when we wanted a picture, we would, take a picture and wait for the picture to come out. So yeah, so it's pretty cool now. That's becoming popular again. So yeah, so there you go. I think in a way, Deanna, maybe that's something young people are wanting, is something more like this. But I think still, in general, it's not so cheap to keep printing pictures. So maybe one reason is because of the cost. It used to be much cheaper. You would buy a pack and then it would just print out these pictures. So okay. Yeah, so we had that when I was young. Um, well, as some of you know, I'm a photographer, right? So I do like to take pictures, but I don't really print that many pictures anymore. So I do think it's a good idea to try to print pictures. So maybe, Yafet, maybe you should think about finding some of the pictures you like and printing them, because hey, the phones the cloud may something may happen to the cloud, something may happen to your photos. So all right. Well, guys, we could talk about this for a long time. I could see a lot of people like to talk about the past, right? You're right, God. It's kind of old habit. But still, I think it's a good idea to have some printed pictures, right? For example, I'm looking at my office and I have pictures like this is a picture of me and my wife from when we were in college. Right? See how young we were. Look how young we are in this picture, right? Yeah. So I do like to look at that picture when I'm here in class, looking at those. But I don't really have a lot of photos. I'm looking around, not so many pictures. So all right. Well, once again, guys, our expression for today: the good old days, right? Now, as we said before, the good old days can be talking about a time of your life, like a specific time when you think were the good old days. Some people also use them to talk about the past, right? Just in general, thinking about the past of the history of a country or the history of a particular culture. So again, it's a very good idea sometimes to go back in the past, but maybe it's also good to think about the future too. All right, now what I would like to do we're going to start a new topic here this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and switch presentations. So we were going to identify this in our last class, but we just didn't have enough time. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the topic here today, and so I'm going to switch to that right now. And that is talking about the idea of used to. Used to. So since we were discussing the past, I thought this would be a good opportunity for us to look at another grammar idea, and that is things that we used to do. So I'm going to click on the link here to open. And let's go ahead and log in. All right, now the actual idea of used to is not a very it's not a very difficult idea. It's talking about things that we used to do in the past. Now we're going to discuss a couple of things here this morning. First, we'll just talk about the meaning of the idea, but then we'll also talk a little bit about the pronunciation and the grammar. So that's kind of something we'll look at. So first, let's talk about the meaning. So when we use used to, we're basically talking about things that we did in the past that we don't do today. Now, if you look at my two examples here at the bottom, let's look at those first. Okay. So it says, for example, they used to live in Los Angeles. So when we hear that sentence, they used to live in Los Angeles, well, that tells us two things. Number one, that was in the past. And number two, they don't live here or in Los Angeles anymore. So this particular action was something they did before, but they're not doing now. Okay, look at the second example. He used to play basketball. So again, that was a sport that he used to do, but doesn't do it now. So this particular expression is basically a simple way to say this was a situation or a habit that was true in the past, but not true now. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. It's just the basic meaning of the expression. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is pronunciation. And one of the reasons why, because students often get it confused with this word, and that is the word use. Use. So the idea of use, so if I can, I'll tell you what, that's not very big. Let's use my other tool here. Give me just a second. Can't really see that very well. Okay. All right, let's try it again. Okay, so let's go back and talk a little bit about the pronunciation. Now, the idea we're looking at here this morning is talking about the idea of the difference between the word use, okay, which again is referring to a verb, versus the idea of used to. So let's talk about those two ideas. But first, let's talk about the pronunciation of this word. So you will notice that the S in the word use sounds like a Z sound. Use, use. Now, when we use something, that means we put something into action. So when we use something, it means that we begin giving it some sort of purpose, or we begin using it for some sort of reason. So let's take a simple example. So I use a pencil to write, just as an example. Okay. So in this case, the word use is referring to that I give this particular thing some purpose or action, right? I use this to do something. Or for example, we use our cell phones, right, to communicate. So that's the first thing we need to talk about, is it is a different pronunciation. So this brings us to the word used. So this is where used and used to get, again, kind of confused. So again, we're using the word used with that Z sound to say something that is not new. So for example, if I say, I need to buy a used car. Well, again, what we're trying to say is this is a car that is not new. Now, of course, maybe it's only a little bit used. It could be really used. But the idea is if something is used, that means someone has done it before, right? Someone has used this thing before. So again, in this case, we're talking about a different meaning, and we're talking about a different pronunciation. So that's the first thing I want to share with us, is that this particular idea, right, something that is used, is not the same as the idea we're talking about here this morning. What we are talking about is using a word to represent the past. So let's highlight that again on the screen. I'll use a different color. And that is the word used to. Used to. Okay. Now, in this particular case, it is a verb, right? It is a verb, but it's used for a particular purpose, and that is to show a past action, right? So, as we said before, it's some habit or some past action that is no longer being done. So when we think about this expression, right, used to, that's what we're talking about here this morning. So again, the pronunciation, if you notice, We don't use a Z sound, we use an S sound. That's number one, right? That use, right? The other problem is we don't really hear the D because it is actually linking together with the next word, to. So if you listen again, used to, used. So if you notice, I'm stopping when I pronounce it, used to, used to. So what happens is by stopping on the D, I'm actually linking or kind of blending the two sounds together. Now, everybody, do me a favor. Let's turn on our microphones for just a moment. So everybody, let's turn on those microphones. Let's practice the pronunciation of this again. Okay, so everybody repeat after me. Used to.
Used
Used to.
No, a
Used,
little okay, a little
Used
faster.
to.
A little faster. Used to.
used to,
Used to.
Oh, that's much
used to.
better. Yeah, that's much better.
Used to.
Okay, you can turn off the mics there for a moment. Yeah, it's really important that you say it a little bit faster. Used to, because I think what happens is if you say it too slow, it begins to sound like used. You see the difference? Listen to the words again and notice how one sounds faster than the other. So listen again. Used to, used, used. Can you hear the difference and how one sounds faster than the other? Usually what I like to do is use my hands. So watch my hands. Used, used, right? That's the used, the Z sound. Now, look at my hands again. Used to, used to, used, used to. Do you see the difference? So that's why it's so important to make sure we pronounce it a little bit faster, because then it's a lot easier for people to understand. Oh, used to, used to. Okay, so again, that's where things can get a little confusing, is thinking about the pronunciation, but also thinking about the meaning. All right, now finally, what I'd like to do is just remind us of the grammar of the word used to. Okay, so I want to move this over here. So if you recall, in using the form used to, the instructions here, right, the rule says we use used to plus the base form of the verb. So in this case, when we create it, we kind of use sort of like used to live, right? Used to live, used to play. We don't change the word, we keep it in its base or simple form. So that can also be a little confusing, especially when you're trying to, make a new sentence. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about this in just a moment, of some things we used to do, right? But first off, I want to see if we have any questions about just the basic meaning and any discussion, any grammar discussion we've talked about here today. So do I have any questions about used to? Okay. So again, I don't think it's a difficult idea, but it's just one that requires some practice. So we're going to start with a little activity. So guys, let me switch over back to my presentation now. Okay, now we're going to use the chat for this exercise. All right, so this will be a good chance for us to do a little bit of writing. So it says, complete the following sentences in the chat with your own answers. Okay, now they don't have to be true. All right, I'm not going to call your mom and say, is this true? No, you can do anything you want. So, all right, so let's do this example that you see on the screen. Okay, all right, so it says, when I was a student, I used to, but now I don't. So now, of course, you could put anything there. Anything would make sense, right, in this example. Used to. So everyone go to the chat right now and finish that sentence. You don't have to write the complete sentence, but let's finish the sentence. So for example, Gada has already put a good one there, but that was one, I think, thinking about maybe when you were, before you got married, but still that makes sense, right? You used to live with your family, right? Okay, so guys, think about an answer here. I'm going to put my example in the chat. You guys think of an example for you, okay? So I'm going to put my example. So here's my example. So when I was a child, right, when I was a student, I used to ride the bus. That was how we used to go to school. But of course, now I don't. Okay, all right, so guys, I'll give you a minute or two. put your answer in the chat. So tell us, when you were a student, what's something you used to do, but you don't do now? So something you used to do, but you don't do now. Okay, all right, Deborah. That sounds pretty typical. So you don't play anymore, huh? Okay, hey, still, that's good. What, Yafet? You're not doing English homework late at night? Oh my goodness. Okay, good, good. All right, Miriam. Yeah, that kind of happens, right? When we get older, we don't have time for the friends. It's probably those friends too. Wow, Deanna, I feel very special. You don't come to English class late. That is true. All right. What, Lupin? No more bicycles? It's kind of hard to ride a bike in the United States. You have to go to a park. Yeah. Maybe the exercise bike, maybe. So, all right. All right. I think most people have responded. Okay. Uh-oh. What, Tiaba? You used to run away from school. You didn't like school?
That's not true.
Okay. Okay. This is one of your fantasy inventions. Okay.
This is what I wanted to do
Oh, I see. I see. You wanted to do
sometimes.
it. Okay. I'll be honest. Yeah. Sometimes I was like, I want to go outside. I don't want to be inside. Yeah. That's true. Okay. All right. Okay, so I think we get the basic idea for the exercise. All right, so guys, we're going to continue to use the chat for this activity. So now I'm going to show you a sentence, and I want you to complete it in the chat with your own answer. Now, remember, it doesn't have to be true. Doesn't have to be true. The idea is just put an answer that you would like to use. Okay, so here's number one. When I lived in my country, I used to, but not anymore. All right, so there's number one. Okay, so guys, put your answer in the chat. Okay. Okay. All right. Got it. Was that maybe because you were single, right? Maybe before we got married. Is that part of it? Let's see. Same thing for Tiaba, right? Okay. Now, Lubna, that's a great point. We don't really pay with cash that much here in the United States, do we? In fact, some places say no cash at all. Well, especially today, Miriam, right? I don't think you would want to do that today. Whew. I think so. All right, Deanna. Well, that's true. I'm sorry. Yeah, we used to have time for friends. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. But hopefully you'll have some new friends here in the United States. All right. So Deborah, so what, Deborah? You don't eat beans and rice anymore? Or something different? You think Americans don't like beans and rice or something? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other answers for number one? All right. All right. Let's try number 2. Okay. All right. So number 2, in fact, some of you may have already answered number 2. So number 2, I used to play when I was younger, but not now. Now I'll answer this one because this is definitely true. I used to play the piano when I was really young, but not now. So used to take piano lessons. I wasn't very good at playing, but I took some piano lessons. So if you notice, you could play an instrument or a sport. So real quickly, tell us maybe if you had a sport. So I remember Lubna. Lubna was a super soccer player, right? Lubna, I can't remember. Were you goalie? Was that right? Can't remember. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I was.
I thought you said that before. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Got it. Used to play outdoors. Yeah. Well. Okay. Yeah, Deborah, that might be a little dangerous today. I think that'll. Plus, it also might look crazy if you're an adult playing in the street. Don't you think so? All right. Hey, Tiava, Scrabble. Yeah, playing a game. I love Scrabble. Oh, okay. Yeah, I love it. All right, Deanna said. Oh, Deanna, you used to play the piano too? Were you good at it? Were you a good piano player? I wonder if you took lessons for a long time, right? Okay. Flavia, me too. I used to play basketball. In fact, I played basketball for a long, long time. So I think I only stopped maybe about 10 years ago. Getting too old. Getting too old. Okay. All right. So Yafet mentioned soccer as well. Now, Yafet, a lot of my students still play soccer. They still go over to UC, University of Cincinnati. They play over there. I think there's some places over in uh, uh, Beachmont where they play. So I don't know if you're still interested, but a lot of my students still play soccer. So, all right, here's number 3. Okay, now number 3 is going to connect to number 4. So number 3, the first thing I want to know is, okay, oh wow, Diana, okay. So Diana, did you play concerts or recitals? Okay, well, guys, speaking of music, yeah, okay, well, that's maybe not so safely, right? Got it. All right, so guys, tell us what your favorite kind of music used to be. All right, so tell us in the chat, tell us what your favorite kind of music used to be. So I'll put mine. So mine used to be rock, right? Rock and roll when I was younger. So what about you? What's your favorite? Okay, so Flavia. Oh, you too, huh, Flavia? Rock music? Okay. Okay. R&B. Oh, Tiava. Okay. Some R&B music. I like some R&B. Okay. All right. Classic. Okay. You mean like classical music? Yada? Is that? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yapa said country music. Now, do you mean American country music or the country music from your country, Yapa? Okay. Really? Wow. Okay. I didn't. Many of my students don't know much about American country music. Okay. Diana, sad music. Well, sorry to hear it was sad. Okay. Now, some of you are already answering question number 4. So I'll go ahead and put question number 4. What's the music you like to listen to now? So I see Deborah mentions with English music. Okay, so maybe that helps you learn English better. Sometimes it's hard to understand the words. Deanna mentioned happy music. So Deanna, who's a happy singer? You have to tell us what happy music is. Now, I'll put my answer in the chat. So my favorite music now is jazz. So I love listening to jazz music. Okay. Okay, all right. So Flavia, oh, you listen. So Flavia, gosh, it's like we're brother and sister. You used to listen to rock, me too. Listen to jazz, okay. All right, Diana said Ukrainian artists, okay. You'll have to share some of your favorite Ukrainian music. All right, Tiava, my country music, okay. Yeah, sometimes I know, like sometimes I may know a little bit about different countries, you know, the types of music in different countries, but I don't really follow it that much anymore. All right, Yafet said R&B, hip hop, and Afro beats. Okay. Any favorite hip hop artist, Yafet? Anybody you like? The music that you don't like before. Does that mean you're getting old, Lubna? Okay. Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That's what happens when we get older, right? Okay. All right. Well, you guys have shared some really interesting things, so I'm glad to see all the different answers. Okay. Now, I think we have time to try one more activity. So now you like the sad music. Okay. All right, now this in this next activity, we're going to do this exercise. So I think we have just enough time to finish one more exercise. So let's look at the activity. So in this activity, you're going to work together. So in just a moment, we're going to return to the breakout room, and you're going to practice with these sentences. So if you look at these examples, everyone take a look here at these examples, you will see at the top of the page a group of words. Okay. So sorry, I'm trying to write it there. There we go. And the idea is you're going to finish the sentence, but you have to create the appropriate information to fit into the blank. So everyone take a look at number one. Take a look at number one. So it says, my husband blank a lot, but a year ago he quit smoking. So the first part you need to use is used to, right? My husband used to.
Smoke?
And then the answer would be used to smoke.
Yes.
Right. But a year ago he quit smoking. So that's it. It's just a simple, quick little exercise for you to practice using the idea of used to. Okay, so this should not take you very long to answer. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. We're going to return to the breakout room and we'll take maybe about 3 or 4 minutes to do this exercise. I think that's probably all we'll have time for is to finish this activity. So we'll see how it goes. But guys, we're going to return to the breakout rooms and then I will come in and share the link to the activity. Okay, so we're going to keep the same rooms we had. Okay, so we'll wait here just another moment or so. Yeah, we've had a couple of technical problems with Google and Google Meet. So I think we're waiting for one more person. All right, well, as we're waiting, let's go ahead and check our answers. So maybe Lubna, would you like to try number 2 for us?
Okay. I used to eat a lot of junk food, but now I eat more fresh fruit and vegetables.
Okay, so used
But
to
it's not correct.
eat. Especially not broccoli, I hope. All right, Flavia, you want to try number 3?
Yes. Oh, let's see. Number 3, right?
Uh-huh.
Peter. So I can pick from the word bank the verb live. So it's going to be Peter used to live in a small apartment, but last month he moved into a large apartment. Good luck for him.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a hard thing to do in today's economy. All right. All right, so we used to live in a small apartment. Okay. All right, number 4, Tiaba, you want to try it?
Yes. Lena used to go on crash diet to lose weight, but now she counts calories instead.
Okay, very good. By the way, do we know what a crash diet is?
I was
No.
about to ask about that. It's like very strict, very hard diet or not?
Well, it kind of. What it means is it's trying something in a very short period of time. So unfortunately, it could be something possibly very dangerous. So for example, like not eating anything, for example.
Protein, she's not eating, for example, protein.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
usually, yeah. So it's kind of like it's like a diet, like you said, it's very strict, but it's also something you try to do in a very short period of time. So, some people think, oh, I've got a wedding next month and I have to wear these clothes. So I'll stop,
For
So,
example, the summertime is coming up, so and
yeah.
then crash diet. That's crazy. That's a bad idea. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, of course, summertime is about 4 months away. So maybe you need more time. I don't know.
Just
But crash
pretend you
diets
are
are
in
kind of
May.
dangerous. Yeah,
Just
they
pretend
can
you
be.
are in May, and then the summertime is coming
Okay,
up
good.
soon, and then you start this kind of
I think
diet.
that's a good idea. Anyway, yeah, everybody, let's just pretend it's May already. Okay, let's forget it's January. So, okay. Yeah, the problem Gata makes a good point. The problem with crash diets is you might lose weight immediately, but then it's very easy to go back and gain that weight. Yeah, that's the problem with crash diets, right? They create this kind of strange situation. All right, Deanna, would you like to try number 5?
Yeah. Tom and Susan used to study at City University, but now they go to Columbia University.
All right, very good. Okay. Yafet, you want to try number 6?
Yeah, sure. Number 6. I used to write articles about politics for the newspaper, but now I am doing restaurant and theater reviews.
All right, very good. Okay, now I think we can pretty much all of us guess the last one, right? So everyone, let's say it together. My mother used to
Sit.
Teachers.
Sit around
Sit.
all
sit
day.
around. Yeah.
Sit around.
But I don't think it's true.
Well,
Mine is always busy.
I think this one is hard to believe. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Um, I think so. Yeah, I think so. All right. Okay. Well, guys, we have a few extra minutes here, but our time I don't have enough time to do another activity, so I'll save it for our next class. But I think we're off to a good start. We're off on a good idea of understanding used to. Now, we're gonna do one more activity in our next class, and then I'm going to introduce a related topic of some other expressions related to this idea. So we'll talk about that as we go for our next in our next class. But our time is pretty much up for today. So guys, please try to stay warm. Now this says Tuesday, but of course we meet on Mondays and Wednesdays. So we will see you next Monday. So guys, thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Stay warm. Thank you.
Bye.
Yes.